Hey everyone, it's Jonathan here, founder of Driving Academy, and in today's video, we're going to be giving you 3 life-saving tips. That's right, I mean life-saving tips, how to actually drive safely on the mountain. Because you saw exactly how this video opened up, and that is not what you want for yourself. Because at the end of the day, you want to make money with your CDL license, you want to make sure you're getting home safely, and maybe you want to see this beautiful country that we are all part of, right? So let's kind of get going with the 3 main tips. We're going to cut out all the fluff and kind of give you guys what actually is needed to know. So the first tip is going to be pre-trip itself. So one of the worst things that can happen to you, especially going down a hill, is when it comes to mountain driving, is going to be a truck breaking down, right? Because that is not going to be a good day. Now, why is mountain driving even so difficult in the first place? Well, one, depending on the mountain that you're in, when you're coming up, you're going to have certain concerns. When you're going down, you're going to have completely other concerns. One of the concerns that you want to avoid at all costs is going to be mechanical breakdowns, simply because when you're up there, you can't really get enough attention moving forward, and when it comes to getting towed out of there, it's not going to be easy. The other thing that's going to be a lot of these mountain roads are pretty much narrow, and the higher you go, weather takes a big concern for actual driving itself. And you're also dealing with cars, and trucks operate 2 completely different ways when you're dealing with high altitudes and actually driving up and going down mountains, right? So there is a lot of different concerns on mountains. If you've been driving around mountains your whole life when it comes to cars, that's one thing. So like we talked about, tip number 1 is making sure that you're doing all the pre-planning that you need to do. So pre-trip inspection, super important. What are the things to check? You want to make sure you're checking as many things as possible. The basics are going to be things like fluid, make sure your tires are all good under pressure, make sure nothing is really kind of cut or anything like that, because getting a tire blowout up there is not a fun thing to deal with. The other things that you're going to want to make sure that everything is nice and tight, nothing's loose, and because like I said, the last thing you want is things to just fall apart on you. Now, part of the pre-planning is going to be seeing what the weather actually looks like, because whatever the weather is at the bottom of the mountain, most likely it's a completely different weather at the top of the mountain. For instance, if winds are kind of windy down on the mountain on the bottom, once you actually get to the top, it can be pretty dangerous. And depending if you're loaded or unloaded depends on if you decide to move forward or not. And because of all the curves that are happening, the way the wind turns around mountains or around the curves can actually have bigger gusts of wind, and you can potentially blow you off the mountain, which is something that we want to avoid. Remember, driving a car is easy, very aerodynamic. These big tractor trailers, it's like you're driving a sail behind you because everything's a big box. So fully respect it. Mother Nature ain't nobody to play with, and always better to be safe than sorry. Now, if it does get that bad, the officials should be able to close the streets off to kind of warn people off, but you never want to leave your life in somebody else's hands. All right, tip number 2 is going to be proper downhill driving. So going uphill, it can be difficult, right? But it's not that many things are going to happen going uphill. Most of the accidents wind up happening going downhill because truck drivers do not keep themselves in the proper safety speed and the proper safety distance as well. That being said, when it comes to going downhill, there are going to be certain rules that you do have to take account. When it comes to going uphill, when you're going up against a car, you're going to see this all the time, where a truck's going to go super slow, stay on the right lane, and these cars are just going to kind of zip and zoom around them. Remember, a tractor trailer can weigh up to 80,000 pounds when it's fully loaded. That means traveling 80,000 pounds up the hill is not going to be easy on your engine to do. So if you need more power, the thing you have to understand about that is you want to lower it into a lower gear. So for instance, if all of a sudden you're 9th gear and you're starting to slow down, get yourself into 8th gear, so then you can actually pick up more power. The way the gears work is the lower the gears, the more power, but less speed, and vice versa. So keep that in mind as you're going up. Now, as you're going down, there's a very specific ruling that you have to follow in order to keep you safe. So first rule number 1 is if you are driving an automatic or a manual transmission vehicle, you want to make sure you're going downhill in at least 1 gear lower than what you're climbing up in. So in our example, if you're climbing up in 8th gear because you were 9 and all of a sudden you have to drop down to 8, now by the time you actually start going downhill, you want to make sure that you're going in 7th gear itself. Now if you're saying, Jonathan, I drive an automatic truck, I don't have to worry about that, BS. there's an actual override button on your manual transmission. Make sure you put it in 7th gear so you're not going to have any issues there, right? The other thing that you do have to understand is going to be making sure that you're staying in the proper speed limit. So we're going to keep things simple. Say the speed limit going downhill is 40 miles an hour. What is actually going to happen is if you do the proper gear, so in this case you're going to be in 7th gear, you're making sure that you're using the braking effects of the engine. What winds up happening to a truck like this that falls completely out of the mountain is because he could not control his speed, and when it came around to a turn, took it way too fast. So if you actually put it in 7th gear, that means every gear has a maximum speed that vehicle can go. So you can take your foot completely off the gas sometimes, and that nothing will actually go faster than what that gear range is going to be. So that's, you want to use the braking effects of the engine. The next thing that you have to understand is how to handle your actual physical service brake. So what the CDL manual states, and if you don't have your CDL license yet, you want to make sure you're taking notes down here, because it's definitely going to be a question on your actual permit exam. And if you do have your license, this is going to be a great refresher for you. So say you're going downhill and the speed limit is 40 miles an hour. You want to make sure you're in 7th gear. Then you want to make sure that you're slightly tapping on the brakes until you get to 5 miles an hour below the speed limit. So in this case, if the speed limit is 40, you want to slowly tap on the brake until you get to about 35 miles an hour. At that point, you're going to slowly take your foot off the brake, let the vehicle kind of roll. In most cases, you don't even need to press gas. You're going to just keep it in 7th gear all over. And then what's actually going to wind up happening, because you are going downhill and you can weigh up to 80,000 pounds, your speed's going to start to rise because gravity is going to do its thing. Now, once you get back to 40 miles an hour, you do that same thing over and over again until you get to the bottom of the hill. Sounds simple, but it's definitely something that is super important to understand. The reason why we want to take those breaks and you just don't want to be at 35, if you keep pressing on the brakes for 10 miles or 30 miles or however long these hills can be, you're going to wind up wearing out your brakes completely. So making sure that you're taking your foot off the brake, let your brakes cool off while it speeds up, and then do that process the entire way down. Make sure everything is moving smoothly itself. That being said, you always want to make sure you're looking ahead of schedule, because 80,000 pounds coming to a complete stop if there's traffic or an accident or something like that is not going to be easy to do if you don't have enough time. So that's all the downhill procedures that you have to understand when it comes to going down a hill. Now, the last thing that you have to understand that's going to be life-saving when it comes to mountain driving is going to be understand what your emergency plan is. So in worst case scenario, if something was to happen, even though you did everything in your power to make sure nothing bad did happen, you have to understand what are your options, right? So the best option in most of the situations is going to be taking an emergency off-ramp. So that's what this looks like right over here. And pretty much what it looks like is for anybody who lost control of their truck or burned out their brakes or maybe got into the wrong gear or something like that, you can actually take these emergency off-ramps, and most of the time it's actually going uphill. So the idea here is the further you go into the ramp, the softer the ground gets, like a sand pit, and that's going to slow down the vehicle, assuming that you have no brakes, and that's what it was designed for. The best case scenario is you do that and everything is safe, you stay safe, and there's minimal damage to the truck. The higher you go up, the more soft the ground is, which means more the truck's going to sink, and that just means that your tow bill is going to be pretty darn hefty. But I'd rather pay a tow bill than lose the truck and everything else, right? The next case scenario is going to be making sure that you try to use the brakes to slow down the vehicle as much as possible, and then try to force yourself into a gear if there is no emergency off-ramp itself. So what does that actually look like? Like we talked about, if you're driving a manual transmission, every gear has a certain speed that it can be into. So you really have to understand what speed your truck gears work in. As an example, if you want to slow down all the way to 25 miles an hour, and at that point you want to ram it into 6th gear, you should be good to go in most trucks. Just raise up the RPMs to 1800 RPMs while you're doing it in neutral, should be good. Worst case scenario, you want to try to not hurt anybody else and get yourself into a ditch someplace to really secure yourself in, and so you're not going to be damaging anything, because a ditch is much better than flying off the side of the mountain as a whole. And at no case should you just jump yourself out of an actual truck, because at that point you really have no idea what that truck's going to be happening. And if you just follow the first 2 steps, the chances of you actually having to deal with step number 3 is going to be super low. So we hope that this was a good experience for you. We hope that you actually enjoyed this content. And like I said, if you're an experienced driver already, hopefully you know all this stuff, and this is just a great refresher. Put in the comments below on any other tips that you think newbies should really understand. And if you're looking to get CDL license, this was great information for you because you're going to need to know this for your actual written exams under general knowledge. Now, if you need help getting yourself a CDL license, come to the best CDL school in the country here at Driving Academy. We're here to help you out for the entire process, no matter where you're starting from. And we have guaranteed training courses as well. So we're open up 7 days a week, and all you need to get started is $500 down, and we can work out a payment plan for the rest. So check out our website, cdldrivingacademy.com, find a location near you, and we're more than happy to help you out. Thanks. Have a great day. Make sure you hit that like button. Also, subscribe to our channel. It's really going to help us out. Click on that button. And if you want to continue yourself on your road to freedom, here's more videos to watch. There's endless amounts. Hopefully we get to see each other one day very soon. Thanks.